I'm going to share with you today what I've found that every grieving person wishes that the people around them understood. First of all, let me say this. If you're trying to help someone who's grieving, the fact that you're watching this video tells me something about you. It tells me that you care. You don't want to make things worse. You want to help. And I think that's a wonderful place to begin. My name is Eddie Trauber. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. And for over 30 years, I've had the privilege of sitting with people during some of the hardest moments of their lives. And I've learned a lot from them. In fact, many of the things I'm going to share with you today aren't things I learned in graduate school. They're things that grieving people have taught me over the years. And one of the first things they would probably want you to know is this: you don't have to fix our grief. You can't, and that's okay. One of the hardest things about loving someone who's grieving is feeling helpless. You watch someone that you care about hurting, and every instinct inside of you wants to make it better. That's what love does. It wants to relieve suffering. But grief is different. Grief isn't a problem to solve. It's a burden to carry. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone isn't an answer, it's simply your presence. One of the things I've noticed over the years is that grief makes people uncomfortable. Not just the person who's grieving, everyone around them. And when we're uncomfortable, we naturally want to say something or do something that makes us feel more at ease. And that's where so many of those familiar phrases and platitudes come from. People say things like, well, at least they're not suffering anymore, or at least they're in a better place, or everything happens for a reason. I know those words are almost always spoken with good intention. People aren't intentionally trying to be hurtful, they're trying to comfort someone that they care about. But here's the problem. Those statements often do more to relieve the speaker's discomfort than they do to comfort the grieving person. What the grieving person often hears is, please don't feel what you're feeling, or let's move past this as quickly as we can. That isn't what most people who are grieving need. Grief needs room. It needs time. It needs someone who's willing to sit in the pain without trying to rush away. Research consistently recommends avoiding platitudes and instead just acknowledging the loss with genuine presence and empathy. One of the comments I've heard over and over again from grieving people is this: one of the most meaningful things someone has said to them was simply, "I'm so sorry for your loss." That's it. No explanation, no trying to fix it, no long speech, just a simple acknowledgement that they're hurting. Sometimes we think that we have to come up with the perfect words. We don't. Real compassion is usually much simpler than that. I'm so sorry. I'm praying for you. I wish I had the right words. Those kinds of statements communicate something much deeper. They say, I see your pain, I care about what you're going through, and you don't have to carry this by yourself. Sometimes people ask me, what if I cry? Then cry. It's okay. Tears don't make you weak. They tell the grieving person that they're not the only one who recognizing how significant this loss really is. One of the biggest fears people have is saying the wrong thing. So sometimes they avoid the grieving person altogether. They stop calling. They stop texting. And sometimes they'll even walk the other way in the grocery store because they don't know what to say. Please don't do that. Silence hurts much more than imperfect words do. Most grieving people would rather hear, I don't even know what to say, but I wanted you to know that I was thinking about you. They'd rather hear that than nothing at all. That kind of honesty is refreshing. It removes pressure. It allows both people to simply be human together. And that may be one of the greatest gifts you can give someone who's grieving. There's something else that I've heard grieving people tell me over and over again throughout the years, and it goes like this: please don't be afraid to talk about the person who died. I know why people hesitate. They're afraid they'll make the grieving person cry or uncomfortable, but let's be clear, they're already thinking about the person that they've lost. You didn't put that thought there. They're carrying that person with them every single day. So when you say their name, when you ask, tell me something about your mom. What was your husband like? What's one of your favorite memories? You're not reminding them that someone died. You're reminding them that someone lived. And that's one of the greatest gifts you can give. One of the deepest fears grieving people carry is that everyone else will slowly stop thinking about the person that they loved. Almost like they disappear a second time. Don't let that happen. Say their name. Tell a story. Share a memory. And if tears come, that's okay. Tears aren't a sign that you've made things worse. Sometimes they're simply a reminder of how deeply someone was loved. There's something else that grieving people wish that you understood. Please don't put a timetable on grief. We live in a culture that likes things to be fixed quickly. We like problems that have solutions. Grief doesn't work that way. I've had people sit in my office and say, it's been 6 months. I should be over this by now. Or, it's been a year, why am I still crying? And my question is always, who decided that? Who put that time limit on it? Love doesn't follow a calendar, neither does grief. It changes, it matures, it becomes different over time, but it doesn't simply disappear. That's why birthdays still matter. Anniversaries still matter. Holidays still matter. A favorite song, a favorite smell, an empty chair where they used to sit. Those moments don't mean someone is grieving the wrong way. They mean someone they deeply loved is still deeply missed. One of the kindest things that you can do is remember those days too. Put them on your calendar. Send a text. Make a phone call. You don't have to write a long message. Sometimes, "I was thinking about you today," or "I remember today might be especially hard." Those comments are enough to put in your card. Those simple acts of kindness often mean even more 6 months or a year after the funeral than they did the very first week. Because by then, most people have gone back to their normal routines. The meals have stopped, the visits have slowed down, the phone isn't ringing as much, but grief hasn't packed up and left. One of the things grieving people remember years later isn't who had the perfect words, they remember who stayed, who kept checking on them, who wasn't afraid of the silence. One of my favorite examples of that is found in the book of Job. Job was a righteous man and he had lost almost everything in his life. And before his friends ever tried to explain his suffering, before they started giving him advice, they did something beautiful. They simply came and they sat down with him. Scripture tells us they sat with him for 7 days and 7 nights without saying a word because they saw how great his grief was. For 7 days, they didn't try to explain the pain. They didn't offer easy answers. They didn't tell him everything's going to be okay. They were simply present. Ironically, it wasn't until they started talking that they got themselves in trouble. There's a lesson in that. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone who's grieving isn't something you say, it's your willingness to stay, to sit, to listen, to let them know they don't have to carry this by themselves. They don't have to be an expert on grief. You don't have to have the perfect words, you just have to care enough to show up. And if you'll do that, you'll probably help more than you realize. Now, if this video has been helpful, I'd encourage you to share it with someone who wants to help a grieving friend but just isn't sure how. And if you'd like to continue learning more about grief, I think you'll find one of the other videos on your screen helpful. See you next time.